You are an Ironman!
Welcome to episode 31. I'm joined today by Ber Carton. Ber, you're very welcome onto the podcast.
Thanks
Very
for
happy
having
to
me.
have you. We are connecting via technology from Tyrone to Wexford today. So let's hope that the Wi-Fi in rural Ireland holds up and people can actually hear what we're going to say. Ber, firstly, you've just ran the Dublin Marathon. How did that go for you?
Oh my God, it was a roller coaster. I suppose one of those days where you just kind of realize that it's exactly how an endurance race kind of pans out when you think back on it, because that's part of the game, isn't it? Endurance events are so long that you can do all the training. You can train 16, 20, 24 weeks, get to the start line feeling good, and then the day could pan out any old way. But yeah, it was just one of those days. I kind of, when I do these events, I always kind of set myself up for success in some form. So I kind of set myself out with a goal, like what would be a good goal for the day that I can achieve. And then I always have one that's kind of the dream race, or kind of, if it all boils down to it, what can I logically do on the day? So I always have those ideas in my mind, kind of in terms of paces and distances anyway, for every race that I do. But when you turn up to these things, you're like, I'm going for the dream day. You may as well just go for the dream day if you're feeling good at the start line, right? So yeah, I was like, I feel good. Let's see what happens today. But also in the back of my mind is the fact that I'm doing this 2-day ultra race in 2.5 weeks, which I signed up to completely last minute. But I was like, hey, why not? I know a couple of people going. Sounds like a good challenge. But I'll talk about that later. So the first 10K I had a stitch. I was like, what is going on? Full on stitch. I was like,
this wasn't part of the plan.
This is not part of the plan, but it'll go away. Right? It didn't go away until about 10K in. At which point I was doing a comfortable pace, but my heart rate was like zone 4, and I was like, this is not sustainable. But yourself, like sometimes your watch might be a little bit off and stuff with that kind of thing, a bit excited on race day, whatever. 10 to 20, then I just felt like nauseous. I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but we'll just keep lashing the gels in and stick to the game plan of a gel every 5K. And I got to halfway and I was like 1:47 at halfway, and I was like, there's no way I'm pulling back 2 minutes in the second half to hit my dream of 3:30. So at that point I was like, right, it's okay, we'll just keep cracking on and we'll go off field and we'll see how this goes. And then 20 to 30 was just like, it's a great part of the race because you've got so many people out and about on that section, and it's a nice little section. So I was just plodding along, and I passed Colin Farrell out on his marathon run that day, around 23K, and I was like, oh, what are all these people cheering about? I'm pretty sure there was extra people out on the support just to see Colin Farrell.
That's right.
Yeah, and then I was kind of I knew I was cruising along pretty well, but I was like, I didn't think it was possible for me to have the dream day at that point. And then I got to, there's a kind of a really rough patch between 32 and 37 that's quite like hilly and rolly and draggy. And I was like, oh my God, the legs are getting tired now. And I had a friend who was at the bottom of that last hill, and he gave me a little pep talk, ran along beside me and had a little pep talk in my ear. And I got to the top of that hill and I was like, do you know what? It's you either go for it now and give it a lash, because I looked at my watch and I thought, if you do a 5 minute per kilometer, like sub 25 minute 5K now, you can pull this back. And I was like, right, I either leave it on the streets of South Dublin now, or I just go for it and see how long I can hang in there. So I just let the legs go, and I was like, I don't know how long this is going to last for, man. Like, at that point I'm thinking I could cramp, anything could happen here, but I was just like, well, just go Just go
Just
for
go
it and
for
see
it,
what happens.
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh man, all the thoughts that were in my head, I was just like clicking off landmarks as I got past them. Longest 5K of my life. I was like, but I knew I was like, I should just keep hanging in there, get to the RDS, get to the canal. And then I spotted my mom and my cousin on the corner there. And I was just like, you know, when you see someone that you know at that point in a race and you just get emotional about it, I was
Yeah.
like, don't get emotional. You've 200 meters to go. You still have to keep moving. But
Wasting
yeah,
energy by crying and stuff. Can't be doing it.
yeah, literally. I was like, oh my God, don't start crying. Like, I'm not a person who really cries very much anyway, but I was like, I'm going to cry because I'm under so much pressure right now to hit this bloody time. And, but like, you know, the way sometimes on these routes, like they're always longer as well than the 42.2. So my watch hit the 42.2 and my watch said 3:30. And I was like, boom, I don't care if I'm not on the finish line.
Brilliant.
So Strava said 3:30.19. My official time was 3:31, but I'm taking Strava because, you know, Strava's king.
It's not often that we do it, but if Strava says it on an occasion like that, then yes,
Yes.
that's absolutely
Yeah.
the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah,
100%.
exactly.
No, that's unreal. Well done. That's a fantastic time. And it's actually a real good strategy to have as well. That you have, even if you weren't able to hit your dream race, you have the reserve and background. So you were gonna be going home taking the positives and of course the medal in any
Yeah.
case. So it's a
Yeah.
cool wee mindset trick that.
Yeah, no, I like to kind of, I think it kind of came about in the last kind of couple of years because I was training for the World Championships there from 21 through to 22, and I was fine for the first one, but I had I had a really tough race for the first one. Just how it panned out. And then last year I just found myself in this headspace of constantly looking at the data and constantly feeling like I wasn't performing well enough because I was putting in all this training and focusing really hard. And I kind of had to take a step back from the whole thing and after one particular race, because I was like, what are you doing? You're just, every time you do something, you're picking holes at what you're doing and you're being hard on yourself for the performance that you've put in on that particular day. And you're not enjoying it anymore because you're trying constantly to hit the top end of what you're trying to do every single day and trying to beat a personal best every single time. And if you're doing that, for some people that works. For me, it was just making me feel bad about myself. And I wasn't enjoying the process anymore. So I was like, right, you've got to come up with a strategy here. You've got to have a dream day. You've got to have like an achievable day. And then you've got to have this kind of, well, if you just show up and it all goes to pot, what can you know that you can do? And so that's how I kind of break it down now.
No, I think that's valuable. It's certainly food for thought, and I think you're right. I think a lot of people get bogged down in the data. I know I'm a bit of a data nerd. I do like looking at the data.
I love the data.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that's very appealing about Strava. You get to look at it and all the wee graphs and all of the zones and all sorts of things. But I think if you get caught up in it, then you're over analytical, and then that sort of analytical mindset then becomes analytical of yourself and of your performance. You know, the data is one thing, but then when you apply it to yourself, and then you're becoming the data. So you know what I mean?
And it's like, you know, most of what I've been doing for the last few years has been endurance sports, like Olympic 70.3 triathlon. And I think especially on days like that, there's so many factors that can go wrong. And there's so many things in the build up that can impact how the race goes on the day, that if you're constantly just striving for that top end, like we're just normal human beings, you know, we're not pro athletes who dedicate our lives to this, even though, you know, sometimes our lives do center around it, maybe a bit more than it should. But, you know, the balance of finding like the balance between the training and the racing and real life for us is different, isn't it? And it's very easy to get caught up in I suppose as well, social media has an impact on that, doesn't it? Because you're looking at other people and people tend to post the highlights. And
that's right.
And if you're constantly comparing your everyday to the highlights of what somebody else is sharing, then you can easily get bogged down in it.
It's this notion of trying to go for the perfect day every day, that kind of almost sets you up to fail.
It does,
because it's not realistic and it's not always achievable. And a really simple example of that is what you've just described with regards to the Dublin Marathon. You were going out, you thought, well, let's have a go at the perfect day.
Yeah.
Well, hello, Mr. Stitch came along and put, like you can't factor in a stitch. You can't factor in the weather, the wind, the road surface.
No.
You can't. There's so many variables. So I think we need to be a wee bit more lenient on ourselves, and try not to get bogged down in that pursuit of elitism. Because we're not elite. Well, I'm not anyway. I'll speak for myself.
Exactly, and at some point you kind of have to ask yourself, what are you doing this for? Are you putting all this time into training, and then that's where you earn the medal in training, right? You only turn up on race day to pick it up at the end line. All the work goes into the training, and that's where, like, I don't think you could ask anybody who does a 16, 20, 24 week training block for a big race, like, did they learn nothing about themselves in that time? Like, the training and the process is where all the magic happens. You just turn up on race day and you hope for the best, really, because on a race above 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, how is there not going to be some moment in that 3, 4, 5, 6 hours that you're not going to go, shit, man, this is hard, like, or that something's not going to pop up, like there's going to be a side wind on the bike, or you're going to get nauseous 3 hours into your marathon, or whatever, like, there's so many things that can go wrong. You can't pin it all on that one day. So you have to ask yourself, what am I doing this for? If it's just for data and the distance and the paces and times at the end, then you're just going to end up burnt out. You have to enjoy it.
100%. And it's always a good way of looking at it as well, that the race is the celebration of the training. Yeah. It's your celebration day.
Yeah.
You're going to the race knowing that you're going to finish the race, and be content knowing that you're able to finish that race or that event or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always like that for you, Ber. You and I have been communicating for a while ahead of the podcast, and I do like to do my homework if I can. But I want to just sort of go back in time, because you've already mentioned that you're in triathlon and you've been very successful within triathlon. But is it fair to say that you weren't exactly a natural swimmer at the beginning?
Oh God, yeah. Oh, so when I started first, I started running just to keep my dog's energy down. I played team sports as a kid, so I played camogie, I played soccer. I actually started playing soccer with the boys because there was no girls team. I was the quintessential tomboy.
Good on you. Proper order. Show them cubs how it's done.
Yeah. And then I played with the ladies team, and I played camogie up until I was 18, 19 as well. And then at the same time, I was also doing Irish dancing and working my way up through the grades in there, right up to champion and dancing in the World Championships then just before I retired. And I retired from Irish dancing thinking I was just going to regain my weekends, get a bit of my life back. In my mid-20s, I was going to have a bit of a life on the weekends.
Right.
Which sounds really funny now, given that I moved into triathlon, but that wasn't the plan at the time.
Yeah, so
I took up running just to keep my dog's energy down. I have a Samoyed, and he was a very energetic puppy, and I hated running. Like, I hate it with passion, because if you think about it, Irish dancing, you just go flat out for a minute and a half, and then you're done, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to keep going and going and going when you're running. This was absolutely like torture to me. Had no idea what I was doing either. Like I would just go out, put runners on and run. But sure, I was probably running like, zone 5 and then dying at the end of the road. So yeah, I took up running just to keep the dog's energy down and hated it. And then I got a bike because my parents were cycling at the time, and I was like, oh, I'll get a bike. That looks like something I can do. And did all the usual fails there where, got clip-in shoes, fell off on the main street in Dunleary one day in Dublin because I didn't clip out right, all the usual fails where you just keel over slow motion into the path.
And of course, nobody was there to see it, or was the place heaving?
Oh, the place was heaving. Yeah, I was. Like, it was just. I'd say, made.
If you're gonna do that, if you're gonna do that, you might as well give people a bit of a chuckle.
Give someone a laugh. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so I did a couple of duathlons, the Phoenix Park duathlons. I was living in Dublin at the time, and then I thought, well, sure, I may as well try my hand at swimming, but I had done swimming lessons as a child, as most kids do in Ireland. But somewhere between, like, in my teen years, I developed a fear, and I didn't realise how bad it was until I was on a gap year in Australia, and I was on this boat in the Whitsunday Islands, stunning, beautiful place. Everybody was getting into snorkel, and I was having a conniption on the side of the boat. Literally, like, I got into the water the first thing, I was like, I don't even know what to do. I had to have one of those little floaty things. And then the second day, the guy pushed me in off the top of the boat, and I thought I was never coming back up from the bottom of the ocean. Right. It sounds funny, but it really genuinely wasn't. I still have like pure fear from that moment where he pushed me in, and that just stuck with me, and I couldn't get my head in the water. Like, I would go to the pool and I couldn't even get my head in the water. So I actually went back to adult swim lessons in the aquatic centre in Dublin and literally learned from scratch again. I remember going to the first triathlon club swim session that I went to, and I was like over in the end lane. I was the person who was like standing up halfway up the 25-meter pool, choking on water, thinking, what am I doing here? Like, I do not belong in this pool with all these people who are incredible swimmers.
Yeah.
And it was mad. Like, I had a really nice coach in that swim session though, and after whatever amount of week blocks, he got me up to 750 meters to do a sprint swim, and that was the aim. I just wanted to do one sprint triathlon. And I did it in the pool, and a pool swim is actually the worst thing ever. Have you ever done it?
Yeah, I've done a few triathlons with pool swim, and I have to say I agree with you. I don't enjoy them at all. There's something about them. There's so much pressure on you. There's people
touching your toes. There's people swimming over you.
You have to stop and turn every 25 meters and all that sort of stuff. And you're in the wee tiny wee lane, and
it's like swimming in the whitewater of the start of an open water swim, but the whole time.
Give me open water any day, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So I did my first one in Portlaoise, and then I tried my hand at an open water swim, and the open water was a disaster because I couldn't, like, yourself, rivers, lakes in Ireland, they all have those reeds in them, and I would just see the reeds and panic, and I couldn't breathe at all. So I either breaststroked or did backstroke. I tried in Loch Cutra. I tried in, where did I go next? Triathlone in the River Shannon. I went back the following year and tried triathlon again, and I still had to swim it on my back. Like, I was 2 years into the triathlon journey at this point, and I still hadn't done a swim. Front crawl.
So were you just swimming on your combination of breaststroke and backstroke then, or were you catching your breath by just floating on your back, or what way were you doing?
No, I was fully doing it, either breaststroke with my head out of the water or backstroke.
Yeah, I'm not being funny, but I imagine the sighting was a bit easier doing the breaststroke.
Yeah, but like if you try and breaststroke in a wetsuit, it's absolutely pulls the life out of you. Like, it's so hard.
I think you're probably a wee bit, maybe even too buoyant in a wetsuit to do an efficient breaststroke, because you need to have your legs kind of under the water a wee bit, and the wetsuit would leave you very, very high in the water, possibly.
Yeah, maybe that's the issue. I don't know. Like I do still occasionally have to do a couple of strokes of breaststroke because I'm still not over the open water swim fear, by the way.
Really?
It's still very much a thing for me. It's only been, I suppose, in the last, like I had, even out of say 3-4 races that I did last year, 3 races I did last year, I think, with open water swims. One of those I had a panic and had to have a moment where I held on to the kayak and just, took my couple of breaths and then got on with it. It's still very much a thing for me, and I can't.
So it's a big challenge for you, really, Ber. Every time you're when you're lining up there in the wetsuit, there's all sorts of things probably going through your mind. Is there, or do you get yourself into? Have you got a mindset fix for your swim anxiety in the same way you do for your endurance thing? Have you got a wee way of navigating that?
Yeah, I suppose I have a few different tricks. So but that doesn't mean that they'll work on the day. I count my strokes. Sometimes I sing songs in my head. And I just remind myself that I've completed every swim that I've ever done. They haven't all been pretty, but I've completed them all. Before I get in, it is very much a lot of positive mind talk. You've done this before, you can do this again. It's only reeds, it's only grass, it's only seaweed. It doesn't matter, it's not gonna touch you. But I actually prefer to swim in deep water that I can't see anything in. I don't want to see the bottom of the sea. I don't want to see anything. I'd rather it be deep and not be able to see anything than actually. Whereas some people, they want to know that they can stand up. I don't want to see the stuff that's down there.
You would do very well in our local triathlon here in the Oma Triathlon Club, because our loch that we do our swimming in is there's a darkness to the water because of the peat.
Okay.
On the bottom of the lake, and because it's a dark peaty bottom, there's no light reflected back up through the water column. So when you're looking down, you can't see a thing. It's like swimming in Coca-Cola. It's great.
Right, I probably would manage that now.
You would love it, yeah.
And the funny thing is that I've in terms of say even racing in Ireland, I'm so picky about the races that I've done. I've only done. I did the Pikeman in Wexford, which is off the coast of Rosslare, which is fine. I've done Harbourman twice, which is there off the coast of Wicklow town. But they're both sea swims. I won't swim in a river here. I made myself go in the river, last year because I was going to Spain to the European Championships, and I was full on convinced that it was in a lake and I was going to have to just face my fear and get over the whole reed situation. And I did manage one swim in the river, but that was it.
I would actually, I'm going to back you up again on this one. In relation to I've never considered doing a triathlon in a river, but it's for very different reasons. Because I used to be very, very keen fisherman, and I was always very attuned to rivers and the conditions of the rivers and the smells of rivers and the things that I have seen and caught in rivers. And I thought I don't want to be swimming in a river for those reasons.
I don't want to even think about that part of it.
Yeah, so for pollution. I mean, we've seen it in Paris.
Yeah,
the pollution in the river.
Yeah,
but no, that's a completely different. That's a different thing. So
one of the things I have noticed though is that, and I know people talk about this all the time about warming up before you get into the water. And when you go to bigger events like Ironman and stuff like that, if the music playing, they're pumping people up, they're getting you psyched up to get in. And I have noticed that that events like that, I tend to do better because I've jumped around. I get into the music and I jump around, and I use that as a way to kind of calm myself before I get in. But it also gets your heart going, doesn't it? So that when you get in, it's not
Yeah,
You know,
that's right. You're psyched up and you're
you're psyched and ready to
distracted with
go.
the circus that's going on around you, and you're getting caught up in it. And
Yeah, so I've
yeah,
kind of realized that kind of thing helps me as well. If I can do a bit of jumping around, dance to the music, whatever, and just kind of lose myself in that side of it, then it's a bit better than me standing there taking deep breaths and talking myself into it, if that makes sense. But yeah.
yeah, it absolutely does. So you managed to get through triathlon, and you've been very successful in triathlon. But you haven't always been a home bird. It's fair to say, Ber. I mean, you have been around a few places. You've already mentioned there that you were in Australia, but you've done a lot of things in a lot of weird and wonderful places. Do you want to talk maybe a wee bit about some of those earlier days? Whenever you were doing ultras, you moved overseas, didn't you?
Yeah, so after, I suppose, to continue on the story and the whole entry into triathlon, I had a couple of 2 years there of failed kind of open water swims here in Ireland, and then I moved to China for a year, and training kind of took a back seat there a little bit. In terms, I was still running, I was still cycling, I was trying to swim in a local pool whenever I could, but like China's just not. It's just not, the atmosphere is just not good for outdoor training there. So while I was still training, it was fine. But then I moved to Bahrain in the Middle East. Most people know Bahrain because the Grand Prix is there. But it's a little desert island that's probably, in reality, not much bigger than County Wexford. And I moved there in September 2016. And they have a 70.3 Ironman there. And I just thought, let's give that a go. Let's just sign up for that and make that a goal. I was like, if I can't do this open water swimming thing in tropical desert waters, then I may just throw my hat in, like, at this whole
Yeah,
thing. If I can't manage it in clear tropical waters, then
yeah,
this game is not for you. You need to just
yeah,
pull the swim and go back to duathlon.
yeah.
So
Like
yeah,
swimming in an aquarium, sort of out there, isn't it?
yeah, like it's just pure sand on the bottom. Even if you see the bottom, it's just sand.
None of those nasty old reeds
No reeds.
or shopping trolleys.
Now, that said, now there is weird stuff that you can see in that water now, the same as you would in an Irish river, shopping trolleys and I don't know, fisherman baskets and stuff like that. But anyways, I was like, right, if you can't do it here, you may just pull the plug on this now. And I suppose, like, the desert kind of climate, it's the perfect place to train, really, when it's not 40-50 degrees, because it's permanent sunshine. You never have to worry about, like, being too cold, getting rained on, any of that stuff. So we joined Bahrain Triathlon Club there, and it was so good. The energy was brilliant. Like, there was cycles every weekend for different levels. And I made some new friends, and there was a really good swimming. We had some really good swimming coaches, actually, and I really got going at the swimming. But and that coach was really helpful to me, actually, in terms of actually doing the open water swim, because they run a series of practice swims before that race every year, and she, like, for the 1.9 swim, it was in the area where the 70.3 would be. So we got in that day, and she actually just came over and got in my face, and she was like, just breathe and swim, breathe and swim. She was like, count your strokes, breathe and swim. You can do this. And, like, I hadn't said anything to her, but she just knew to come over and say that to me. And I did it. And honestly, I may as well not have done 70.3 after that, because I was so chuffed with myself for actually having done the practice swim.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I got the race done, and that was my first 70.3 finish, and it was amazing.
And was that you beginning then to get a wee bit of confidence then in yourself and your ability with regards to the swim? Whenever you broke it down into that simple, do your strokes and take a breath. Was that?
Yeah, I suppose that was the start of kind of knowing, well, you've done it now, you can do it again.
Yeah.
But, like, the other side of it is, like, that swim in Bahrain is in a very safe, it's in an inlet of a harbour. Like, there's a little bit of current, but like the most you're going to get is a little bit of chop. You're never going to get, you know, waves crashing on you or anything like that. So it's a very safe space to be in. But yeah, I stayed living in Bahrain then for 4 or 5 years after that. But at the time after that, then I went through a really bad breakup, and I almost actually left the sport because that person was in the sport also, and I was so new to it still, even at that point, that I was like, I could just step away from this now. But I'd made friends in that community, so they just kept me going, basically, at a time when I was, you know, these people were strangers 3 months before, completely took me under their wing, and were like every weekend had me out doing stuff with them. And yeah, it was kind of the thing that pulled me back out of kind of, I suppose, the depths of a very difficult time. And I'm still grateful to those people, still friends with those people now. It's just amazing the friends that you can make through sport as well. And then on the other side of it, how it can pull you, I suppose, from the depths of something really bad.
Yeah, I mean, you could have taken a downward spiral there, and maybe without any support or without any encouragement or distraction, or you know, that encouragement from other people, you might have chosen
and it would have been
different
very
coping
easy.
mechanisms or whatever.
It would have been very easy to step away from it because I was in this new country. I didn't really know people that well. I was then found myself on my own with essentially a bunch of strangers who turned out to be the best friends a girl could ever ask for. You know, one of my friends, it was kind of that time actually when I discovered that I actually really enjoyed running long distance, because my friend was training for Manchester Marathon, and she was like, I need someone to run long runs with me on the weekend. And I was like, well, I can't run your pace. And she was like, just come and run a long run with me. And we would go out every weekend and I would run 2 hours with her. And so I was doing a half marathon pretty much every weekend with her while she was training. Brilliant. And it was when I realized that running kind of gave me that headspace to get out of what was going on in here and get outside of it and just forget about it for 2 hours. And
that's the therapy that money can't buy.
It's exactly it. I still hadn't cracked the whole like running. I suppose like the thing that I do say to people now is like when they say to me running's hard, is you have to run slow enough first to build the endurance. You have to be able to master that whole running slow enough to enjoy it without getting caught up in the paces and stuff. But it was the start of that journey.
Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. That's the way I kind of think about running, and that's how I began running. I went out, bought the trainers, went out, thought I was having a heart attack after about 200 yards. And I realized that I was going out running as if I was getting chased by a bear, you know.
Yeah.
So I just had to hold on a minute. I'm about to collapse. So you know, I'm going to have to curb the old enthusiasm here. Acknowledge that I'm not a 12-year-old kid, and take things back. And it was only whenever I actually decided I'm going to go really, really, really slow today and see how far I can go. Because I was struggling to get 2 or 3 miles done. And the day that I decided to give myself a break and give myself permission just to go really, really slow, I think I ran about 8 miles. And I came home absolutely buzzing. I ran 8 miles. Now, it was like 12 minutes per mile, but I ran it. I didn't care, you know. So it's a top tip. And I think people should really take that on board whenever they're beginning a running journey, you know, just to go slow and give yourself time. You can't you can't just become a runner, you know.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really important, and I think, you know, like again, back to social media portraying this idea of it always looking like you're having a good time and always looking a certain way, and it's not. That's not the reality of it, you know. Like
it's definitely not as glamorous as Instagram would lead you to believe.
No, and like, you know, you will feel good, but it takes time to get there, and it takes a little bit of time to, you know, develop the engine for it. And I think,
Yeah.
you know, it's very glamorized now. You know, running is hot stuff at the minute. Lots of people want to do it. Everybody's getting into it. You're seeing a lot more people out and about doing it, but it's become a little bit glamorized with social media. And I mean, it's great if it gets more people into it, but not if it gets people into it and then they hate it because they don't know how to do it right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No, you need to get into it, and you need to have that realistic expectation of what you are and where you're at in your journey. And if you're at the very beginning of a journey, you need to know that you've got a long road ahead of you, quite literally, a
Yeah.
road ahead of you. And you just can't, you just can't rock up to a 13-mile race if you've never ran 3 mile. You just don't. You can't do that. Like you
Yeah.
have to go through that. You have to tick these
You
wee
go through the
boxes
path.
off.
You've got to build yourself up.
Yeah. So you're out in the desert and you have your first 70.3 under your belt. The Tri Club have taken you under their wing, seen you through some dark times, and you're out running about now. So your endurance levels are on the build. You're
Yeah.
running 13 mile every week then with your friend out there. So you're now becoming a different animal. You're now becoming this endurance person, and you're now looking at different events and thinking the wee raised eyebrow about, I wonder. Where did the journey take you next?
Well, I did 70.3 Bahrain every year. Like, it's when a race is on your doorstep like that, you have to do it. Like, it's right there, right?
It's
And
fair enough, yeah.
in the community there, it was a buzz to build for it every year. That's what everybody was working towards. And I had it in my head that I would want to do a full Ironman at some point. I did 70.3 Bahrain 2017, and then I did Dubai in the start of 2018, and then I signed up for Ironman Frankfurt. It was in the back of my head because that ex that I had broke up with the previous year had said to me, you know, oh, it's all well and good for you to think that you might do an Ironman one day, but I'm not sure you're cut out for it, or I'm not sure you have what it takes. And I remember thinking, but surely you can go from 70.3 to full. That's what you did. Why wouldn't I be able to do it? But I not to go too far into it now. I think that was one of the I suppose downfall, I don't know what the word is, cracks, I suppose, that came in that relationship, was him realizing that I was capable of doing the things that he was after doing, and that maybe at some point he might have to give me some acknowledgement that I was going to be able to do these things. But yeah, so I signed up for Ironman Frankfurt with a friend, and just with his work schedule and everything, I ended up still doing 80% of the training on my own, I reckon. And that's, you know yourself, like, Ironman training is such a commitment.
Yeah.
And you know, in the desert, coming into the summertime, because Frankfurt is, I think it was the start of July then. Like, you're talking May, June time, doing your longest runs and your longest bike rides in 35 plus degrees,
Yeah.
70 plus % humidity. It was hardcore.
Absolutely. I can't think of anything worse, to be honest, than that heat and the humidity. It must have been,
Yeah,
like,
and it's
that's
funny, like,
savage stuff.
you do things right in a situation like that. You get up at 4 a.m. and you go and start your cycles at 4:30 a.m. and you try and beat the heat. And like, if you tried and get me out of bed at 4:30 in the morning here to go and train, you wouldn't have a hope. Like,
forget about it.
It's as much as I can do to get up at 6:30 one morning a week to go swim in the pool in town.
Yeah.
Whereas before, I'd be done my training by then. Do you know that kind of way? It's just, you do the things that you have to do. It's needs must. If you want to train, this is what you've got to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good training for it because I went to Frankfurt then. I think half my family came from Ireland to watch it. I think I had about 17 or 18 people, like the Irish on tour. And
Class.
it was brilliant, yeah. And
tell me, did that open up things for you? Because no, and I don't want to go into it, but with regards to just that idea that yes, I can do this. Yes, I will do this.
yeah,
And that idea where you committed to it, you turned up, you showed up, you had the discipline, you had the consistency. You went out there and you smashed it, and you must have felt top of the world then at that point, with regards to any notion or any doubts that anybody maybe had put into your head prior to that. You had
yeah.
answered them pretty well, I figure.
Yeah, no, it genuinely, those thoughts were the thoughts that were in my head as I was finishing the run that day. You know yourself, like the marathon on the end of an Ironman is a sufferfest. Like, you're just one foot in front of the other. Get this shit done. Like,
it's disgusting, but yeah,
it's disgusting. And it's just a mindset. And that particular day, I remember those people dropping out. I could see people dropping out around me. Like, it was warm. It was 27, 28 degrees in Frankfurt that day. But for me, that was fine because I trained in the desert.
You're training in the desert, yeah. So that was...
Yeah, there was people really, really struggling with the heat that day. And I was just like, no, keep your head down, one foot in front of the other. But I tell you, I did learn one of my biggest lessons on the marathon run that day. And it's the only piece of advice that I give people if they're going to do an Ironman. And that is, do not eat anything off those aid station tables.
Oh dear.
That you have not eaten before.
Am I going to have to put a disclaimer out in case anybody's eating their lunch at this point?
Yeah, maybe. No. It didn't get bad, but I did lose about 15 minutes because I got to an aid station. Well, the running joke is this, right? My family, as true Irish families do, took the piss out of me in the end because I finished in 13 hours and 3 minutes. And the running joke was, well, you would have broke 13 hours if you hadn't nearly pooed yourself.
Oh dear. A costly stop in the facilities.
Stop at an aid station, and
yeah,
which resulted in about 2k of walking to find the next Portaloo. But we won't go into the details of a Portaloo and the marathon of an Ironman, but it wasn't pleasant. I lost about 20 minutes.
Yeah, your number 2 ended up in costing you those extra 3 minutes.
Yeah, and I still had 10k to go. I still had a loop to go, but I was fine once I got going again. And they still crack the joke at me every now and again. But sure, that's okay.
You finished a bit later anyway, and finished stronger for it, I'm sure.
But it's a piece of advice for everybody doing an Ironman: do not eat anything off the aid station table. Yeah. None of that German cake.
Stick to what you know. Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It did give me that kind of sense of achievement and self-confidence, I suppose, that, do you know what? I can do hard things. I can overcome things. I felt like I'd already, I suppose, climbed a mountain, getting over the emotional turmoil that I'd been in the previous year. And yeah, I mean, how can you not do an Ironman and not think fair play?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm just going to echo that right back at you and say fair play.
Yeah.
Great stuff. So following Frankfurt then, where did the journey take you next?
Well, I kept doing the 70.3. So that was 70.3 Bahrain 2018.
So how many times did you do the Bahrain half then, roughly?
I think 5 times.
5, yeah.
18, 19. No, 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
4 times. Because
it's right there on your door. Yeah.
Yeah, it was right there on my door.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of improving every year. Just kind of not necessarily consciously doing it. Like, I never followed, I suppose, a specific training plan or anything in this time. I actually just loved the training. The training was what I didn't enjoy racing at all. I didn't, like, I would never have come home in the summer and signed up for races here or anything like that. I did the 70.3 because it was on the doorstep, and I went to other races in the Middle East because my friends were going. For me, it was all about the training. The training was the thing that just gave me purpose. It gave me that kind of mind break from stress, from stuff going on in my personal life. And I just love the training. I still don't necessarily love the racing side of it. I would train regardless of having a race, whereas some people need a race on the horizon to train for it. I just love the training, and I love the training for triathlon because of the variety. I can swim, I can bike, I can run, and then I can go back to swim again the next day if I want to. So yeah, for me it was mostly about the training, and it was the perfect place to train. I had friends there that were doing it, and yeah, it was just a really good environment to be in for that kind of purpose. So I did 70 point. As I said, it was getting better every year, but I never really contemplated, like, there was people around me who were qualifying for world championships in the triathlon club and stuff, but I never thought that somebody who genuinely gets into an open water swim with the fear of God in them could ever qualify for a world championships. Like, what business would you have even trying, if you're afraid?
Yeah, that's right.
So I missed out. Some of the lads convinced me to go to the award ceremony one of the years because I think I'd finished like 7th or 8th. And I was like, stop, like, why would I go there? And they were like, no, go on in. And I missed out by one slot. And I thought, it just put the seed in my head. I was like, maybe I could do it. And then I went to Oman 70.3 in 2019 and genuinely had the worst race of my life. The swim was horrendous. I think I stopped 3 times on either holding onto a kayak or a jet ski at one point. It was the worst swim I've ever done. I did not think I was coming out of the water that day to get on a bike. I thought they're going to fish me out. I'm going to be one of those people who's dragged out at the end, being like, you're running out of time. Got on the bike, was about 10k into the bike, and my chain came off. And I got off, put it back on, but in hindsight, I must have hit the derailleur or something when I got back on the bike or something, because my brake was catching, not the derailleur, the brake pad. I must have hit the brake pad when I was getting back on. The brake pad was catching for the next 80k, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with my legs. And I was just struggling so bad, and all my friends were passing me out, and they were like, what's wrong with you? And because I was pretty strong on the bike, and I was like, I don't know. I just don't know. I had a pain in my back. I was like, what is this? And then by the time I got to the run, I was like, just get this done. We're just going for a medal now. But again, I finished 8th or 9th and missed out by 1 spot. And I was like, damn, this is becoming a bit of a habit now. So then I trained for my first Dublin Marathon then at the end of that year. And that was the first time I got a coach for a race. A guy that I knew from my triathlon days back in Dublin offered to coach me, and I was like, yeah, go on, let's give this a go. But I was like, I'll probably be the worst client you'll ever have, because I've never done this before. And yeah, so that was kind of the start of me learning more about kind of heart rate training and slowing down. But also I didn't really have a choice, because it was 37, 38 degrees in Bahrain in September, and I had to do long runs. So I was getting up at like 4 a.m, doing as much run of the long run outside as I could without dying, and then going into the treadmill and finishing the long run in the AC. And I remember saying to him, I was like, I want to do something around 4 hours. And he was like, no, we're going for 3:45 at least. And I was like, what is wrong with this guy? He has no idea. Like, what is wrong with him?
Yeah. He didn't get
Um,
the brief. What the hell?
I was like, he has some notions. Like, there's no way. Because I knew the times that my friend had done in her marathons. And I was like, there's no way I can go faster than her. There's no way. She was a phenomenal runner. I was like, no way. In my eyes, there's no way I could do faster than her, than Sue. But yeah, I got to Dublin and had no idea what I was like. I'd never run a marathon other than at the end of an Ironman. So like, I had no idea really what I was doing.
As a standalone event.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a different game. Like people
It's
say,
a
oh,
different
you ran
thing,
a
yeah.
marathon at the end of an Ironman. I was like, no, I didn't run it. I survived it.
That's right. The marathon at the end of an Ironman, you don't even count that as a marathon. Like, it's
No,
weird.
it's not.
The
It's
hardest
survival.
bloody marathon you'll ever do in your life, but you just like, no, it doesn't count.
It doesn't count. It's survive mode. Like,
Nuts. Yeah.
so yeah, I just went out and I ran it and I had no expectations. And I think what did I finish it in the end? I was 3:35 and I was like, this is crazy.
Brilliant.
This is crazy. I was like, that's mad. Couldn't believe that I had run that way. Like, sure, I hadn't really any idea really about pacing or anything. Doing it, you know, like I hadn't quite figured out that kind of stuff yet. I was very, like, I've always very much run and done races off feel, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was 2019, and then because the 70.3 was in December, I was like, oh my god, this is the first year I'm not going to do it because I've trained for the marathon and I haven't really done any biking and I've definitely not done any swimming because I'm not going in the pool unless I have to. And I was like, oh, I've got pure FOMO now. I'm entering this race. So I entered Bahrain, what was that, 4 weeks after Dublin, and did my best race ever. Because I had no expectation. I just
no pressure.
Yeah, there was no pressure. Actually did my best race ever. And finished, I think I was fourth in my age category that year. And I was like,
really?
I was like, oh, this is it now. I'm going to miss out by one spot because there'll be 3 slots and I won't get one. Because this is the habit now. But I somehow got it that year. Someone passed it on. And yeah, I got a slot to do 2020, which was supposed to be New Zealand, which would have been perfect because I have a brother who lives in New Zealand. So it was super exciting, and New Zealand's one of my favourite places. But then, lo and behold, February 2020.
Oh, the dreaded COVID.
The dreaded C word.
Oh, it screwed everything up. The only thing good came out of COVID was everybody got to paint their house.
Yeah, and
apart from that, everybody's garden looked like a golf course. Yeah, everybody's garden looked great, and their houses were all lovely and painted. Yeah. Apart from that, we were bored senseless, but the weather was great.
And I don't know if it happened around you, but loads of people around here discovered lots of the kind of lovely little local places to go for walks.
Yeah.
Like my parents, for example, found this trail wood forest on a hill nearby our house. Like it's, I'm going to say maybe 7-8 away, during lockdown. And like, I go there running now every week. Brilliant. You know, loads of people discovered places like that when they were in lockdown or restricted to certain distances from their home. So I think there was positives to come from that time, but not the
COVID. So COVID denied you an opportunity then to go to New Zealand for the Worlds.
It did. But just before COVID kicked in, actually, I did my first ultra. Now, I stupidly thought, I've done a road marathon. I can just go and do 50k. That's only 10k more.
How hard could it be?
Sure, it couldn't be that bad, could it?
Yeah.
God, the naivety. It's shocking. Like.
No, but I love that. Like, it's just so pure and like, so I mean, what's the worst can happen, right?
Yeah. You just
good on you.
I think you get this idea in your head that you can do anything now.
Well, that's it. You know, that's one of the amazing byproducts of doing these crazy things. If you've done an Ironman, you can legitimately say to yourself, "Well, I could do that."
Yeah, I can do anything now. That was really what was in my head. I was like, sure, I can do that. That's fine. It's only 10k more than the marathon, and I did that.
So was it as handy then? Was it?
Oh my god, it was dire. And it was on Valentine's Day. And I know this is terrible, but my ex, I ran it with him, but he had bought me the ticket for Valentine's Day. This is so bad. Anyway, we got there and I just felt terrible in the first. I knew there was a checkpoint at 30k where you could pull out if you weren't, because there was a 30k option, a 50k option. But of course, we went for the 50k option. And on the run down into the 30k, I was like, look, man, we could just go back to the hotel and sit on the beach and drink cocktails now. We'll have done 30k of the mountain run. That's fine. Like, I was like, I'm not feeling this today. And he was like, we didn't come here to not finish this. We're finishing this. And I was like, oh, okay then. Got into the 30k checkpoint, but I knew from the map that the big hills were coming. Like, I like topped up all the water, got some food in, headed on out, and then there was a never-ending hill. It was like every time you got to the top of the hill, there was another top of the hill, and then another top of the hill, and another top of the hill.
Yeah.
30 degrees. It was a desert mountain. And I genuinely thought, I'm going to die on the side of this mountain today, because we're running out of water. Yeah, it was bad.
Visions of a skeleton in the sand.
It was so bad. I think it took us 3 hours to do that 10k climb. Like, and when we finally saw the next checkpoint, he was like, it's an illusion. It's not actually there. And like, it is there.
It's a mirage. Yeah.
But anyway, we got it done. But yeah, I was like, oh my God, who does this shit? Like, fucking, yeah. That was crazy. And the reason I know it was really crazy is because I had another friend did it that day, and he was used to doing mountain runs and stuff. He's like an incredible runner. And he came and sat down beside us at dinner at the hotel later that night, and he was like, lads, I sat down on a stone and I cried. He was like, and I had a little cry to myself, and then I stood up and I just cracked on. He was like, but I really thought you guys weren't going to make it.
a wee private moment of what the fuck am I doing?
That was really hard. And I was like, well, I'm so glad that you thought it was hard, because that was the hardest thing I've ever done, and I would rather do an Ironman again. I
can imagine that to be nothing but pain and
it was just
horrific.
It was the heat, man. Oh my God, it was so hot. So yeah, that was my first ultra experience.
Why did they not do ultras like on normal roads? Like ultras are bound to be hard. I've never done an ultra, clearly, but ultras are bound to be hard to do on a road. You know, they always pick fucking mountains and, you know, trails and ups and downs, and I think that's, in all seriousness, like, you know, those ultra guys are made of different stuff. Like, it is
a different
crazy terrain that they go over, and some of it's absolutely like scary, dangerous terrain. But that sounds particularly brutal, that one.
Yeah, it was the desert heat. It was chronic. Like, it was 30 degrees and you were in an exposed open mountain. Like, it just,
I was going to say, there's no shelter, there's no trees, there's nothing there. You're just in the baking relentless heat.
Yeah, out of water, no food left in your backpack. That's it. You're going to die on the mountain.
And the will to live slowly ebbing away with every horrendous footstep in the sand.
Literally. So yeah, then we had COVID, and into then kind of another difficult event, I suppose. I don't know what the right word to put on, a very tragic event. In November 2020, myself and a group of the lads were out cycling one morning. We'd literally just taken off up the road. I think we were like 3k in, and my friend Alan was killed by a drunk driver on the road on his bike. And that was, there's not really words to describe how bad that was.
It's your worst nightmare.
It is. And it's still my worst nightmare when I go cycling. I don't ever go on the road cycling now and not think or not have him at the back of my mind. You know, it's not something you get over. You
No.
seeing something like that happen, you don't get over it. You just, well, you have to process it, and you have to you know, you have to kind of come to terms with it, because you can't just push it away. That just doesn't work. So yeah, that was a very big loss, and a very big, very hard time for all of us. And then kind of coming back from that, getting back on the bike and trying to figure out if this, like, you know, this thing that you loved doing, could you ever get back to it and feel safe? Or was it always going to have this, you know, sense of fear and dread every time you did it? Because, you know, like, as I said, the training was the important part for me. It was never about the race, and it was always about the training. And so if you can't get back on your bike, and if you can't get back out there, how are you going to do this?
Yeah. It's something that we all, I suppose, subconsciously carry with us in our minds when we're on the bikes, you know, and there is a wee sense that, you know, that we are quite vulnerable on the road.
Yeah.
But you kind of don't expect to have to be involved in an accident like that.
No, it's not. It's not something that you would ever want anybody. Like, I wouldn't want my biggest enemy to have to experience that, because it's life-changing. It has completely changed my outlook on life. I don't see things the same anymore. Like, I very much, life now is about taking opportunities when they come. It's about doing the things that bring you joy. It's about making sure that you're living every day, you know, with the right purpose, with the right mindset, and being grateful for the fact that you're here. Because it can literally be taken in a split second. You know,
things can change just so quickly. Yeah.
And when you see, you know, how in a split second somebody can be here and then they're not, then I don't know, like, it has to change how you see things. I did, like, just in terms of, like, what I did in terms of getting back on the bike and things like that, I did go and see a therapist literally straight away afterwards, because I knew that how my mind was processing it wasn't maybe the best. I suppose maybe what I had seen would have been different from what others had seen, but what I had seen was very much living and repeating itself over and over in my head. And yeah, I knew I needed therapy to process it, and to process it right, so that it wouldn't kind of turn into something bigger that would stop me down the line from doing stuff. So I don't know if somebody was listening to this and was going through something or had witnessed something, you know, I think it is important to know that you should go and see somebody, and don't be afraid to go and see somebody and talk to the right person about it. The person that I went to see she was a therapist, but I'm not really quite sure what the right terminology for what she would do is, but she was very into how your brain processes and works out things. So she was able to explain to me why my brain was doing what it was doing, and then the steps that I needed to take in order to process it properly. So, you know, instead of stopping a memory from, you know, like when you have a memory and it's not a good memory and you don't want to have to relive it, you tend to kind of, you try and shut it down. But she was like, every time you do that, your brain is just reprocessing that in a different way. So you need to actually you just need to let it have its moment.
Yeah, and that's the tricky bit, isn't it? Because, you know, it's the idea that whenever you're trying consciously to suppress that image, for example,
Yeah.
then you're keeping the image in the present,
Yeah.
because you're thinking about the image and how you want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
But in thinking about getting rid of it, you're thinking about the image, so it becomes a thing. Then you can get caught up and trapped in that sort of loop.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
she said, you know, the connection between that replay and the feeling that you're having means that you're connecting that feeling constantly to that sport or to that activity. So she was like, you know, you have to change it to think about all of those times when you were fine on the bike, all of those times where you were safe, where you were fine. But it took months and months for me to figure that out. I did a lot of turbo. Bahrain had a little track that's car free, so I went on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to get back out then with a big group, and I had to completely step back from it because I just found it too triggering to be around so many people cycling at the one time, because I was constantly thinking there's so many people that could get hurt right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
you're that hypervigilance because of the
yeah,
trauma.
it
Yeah.
was complete hypervigilance, and I was looking around me all the time, and I was, you know, constantly checking if everybody was okay around me and constantly checking for traffic. And one of the tools that my parents actually bought me a Garmin Vario, you know, the sensor for the back of your bike, and it tells you if there's something coming from behind you. And that I found that really useful because it would give me peace of mind that I knew that something was coming. And I also stepped back then and only cycled with 2 or 3 people that I knew and trusted, and I just needed to know that I wasn't surrounded by people who could get hurt.
Yeah.
Like, not that those 2 or 3 people couldn't, but that I wasn't having to watch 20 people rather than watch 2 or 3.
So you were kind of, in a way, protecting yourself from the worst case scenario and minimizing the potential for
Yeah,
the
that's
devastation
exactly it. Yeah,
amount. You know, the mass of what could happen is
yeah,
reduced by virtue of the fact that you've reduced the potential people
yeah.
that could be hurt.
And I think, and then another part of that process of you know, moving past that thing was that I had been at the back of the group maybe 30 seconds prior to that accident. And, you know, this idea of sliding doors, you know, the difference 10 seconds can make. If it had been 10 seconds earlier, it would have been me.
Mm.
And so that sent my mind into this kind of spiral, because I was like, Alan is a family man. He has a wife, he has kids. You know, all of these people are so upset because he's gone. But I was on my own. I didn't have a partner. I didn't have kids. And my mind just went into this deep, deep, deep spiral of, it would have been better if it was you. And I knew kind of when I had that thought, the time that I had it, I was like, shit, like this, you need to talk this one out, because that is, that's bad. Like, you know, you've turned something into a personal kind of, what's the word, I suppose, about your
It's like,
personal value, or your, you know, that your
yeah,
life is
it's
worth than somebody else's.
yeah, it's sort of, it's like a survivor's guilt
Exactly. That's
thing,
what she
where
told me it
where
was.
where you're thinking that you know, that you feel that in some way that it would have been better
Yeah,
if you had have taken that, and then you would have removed the pain that you've
from other
witnessed
people.
subsequently to that
Yeah,
person from his relatives and his family and things like that.
that's exactly what the therapist told me it was. She told me it was a survivor's guilt, and that it's actually a pretty common thing for people who
Yeah.
survive traumatic events to experience. And I think kind of once, but if you don't go and talk to somebody and get told that, you don't know where that thought could lead to somebody, for somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
it's so important to talk to somebody and then understand, whoa, this is something that lots of people feel after traumatic events, and this is why it happens, and this is how you process your way out of it.
When we're faced with huge things that we don't expect, that are abnormal things, it kind of tricks us. It makes our mind go into a survival mode. It's like a deep survival mode when we've been traumatized.
Yeah.
And we don't want that to happen again. So our brains remind us about it over and over again so that we are alert, so that if the situation was to arise in the future, that we would be so clued into that,
Yeah.
that we would just automatically know how to survive it if it would ever happen again.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we get caught in that loop.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it is about recognizing that. And you're quite right. If you are struggling with thoughts like that, or feelings, or anything that you can't get past, you should never feel or be worried that it's anything other than just your brain trying to keep you safe. And it's just about reworking that and
Yeah.
delving down into that and just understanding it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why it was so important, I suppose, for me, because I suppose as somebody who had been through therapy before for various things in my life previous to that, I wasn't a stranger to, picking up the phone and saying, I need an appointment, whereas not everybody did and not everybody would. And I think we don't talk about it enough in Ireland anymore. It's still not talked about enough, this idea of seeking help outside of yourself and outside of your family. And it's so important.
It really is vitally important. I mean, earlier on today, I spoke with someone, and we were talking about a situation whereby this particular person felt that they didn't need any help, and they were worried that if they needed help, then that would be in some way them admitting that they weren't strong, or that they needed fixing in some way. So I asked them to rethink that in a way that, admitting that there's a vulnerability there, or that there's just something not right, gives you an opportunity to put that right, which then therefore makes you all the stronger.
Yeah.
For doing that. And therein is the strength in reaching out and acknowledging a weakness or a vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know what that is, then you're not fully informed or equipped to protect yourself from it the future. So you kind of you gotta get in there and have a wee delve around, and you don't have to re-traumatize yourself, but you just have to acknowledge that I'm struggling with that bit. I would be a better person if I didn't have to struggle with that bit. So let's try and get past that bit. And that's when you need to lift the phone, as you rightly say.
Yeah, definitely.
You have documented your return to cycling following that tragedy, Ber, very elegantly and very powerfully in a podcast that you have put out, which talks about it at length. I've listened to it, and it's a very, very powerful and very useful podcast. I'm going to put the link to that episode for people if they want to click on that and to find out in a wee bit more detail how you got through that very dark time.
Thank you.
I want to just bring things sort of back into where, subsequently you did manage to get yourself back on the bike. And thankfully nothing terrible has happened since. And you've managed to tick off a few more triathlons then after that.
Yeah, so when I moved home in 2021 after that, because I needed to put my feet on solid ground, and just be at home. And
you didn't bring the heat with you?
I didn't, unfortunately. And I'm not going to lie, I get the piss taken out of me all the time because I still Like I won't get into shorts until like May, June here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I started training in November 2021 I signed up. We were given the option of signing up for the Worlds then, because New Zealand was off the cards for a long time because they had their borders closed. So the option was St. George 22. So I was like, do you know what? We're just going to go do this now. And I had a huge amount of imposter syndrome in terms of even signing up for that race, because it had been 2 years since I qualified. And I was like, how am I going to get myself back to the level of fitness that needs to be to take part in a World Championship event? And then also, I'm now living at home where the sea temperature is considerably less. And
just a tad, yeah.
Just a little bit. How am I going to get into the sea and swim? So yeah, there was a good bit of work went in then across the year. But I hired a coach again, the same coach that I'd had for Dublin Marathon. And it was when I really started to knuckle down on heart rate zone training and things like that to kind of really build my engine back up properly. I actually went and was VO2 tested with, I don't know if you've heard of Health Matters in Dublin. Sean Canan, they're fantastic company and would highly recommend anybody check them out. They're so informative and so good at what they do. I go back to them every year now to get retested. And I just found it fascinating, the whole changing my focus of my training into really focusing on heart rate based training. And it really worked for me. I saw massive gains in terms of my endurance and subsequently my enjoyment then of training, because I was training with a focus and I was training I was never fatigued, like I was training all the time, but because I was so focused in the training, I felt good in the majority of training sessions. And it was like, whoa. Now, have you done zone 2 training?
Yep.
Yeah, it's not easy. It takes a hell of a lot of discipline, and it was really hard at the start. And people don't talk about that side of it. Like, I think zone 2 is portrayed as like this, it's all easy and da 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 da, but it actually takes more discipline to run in that zone than it does to run the pacier stuff and hit paces, I think. So yeah, it was just a really, really good learning curve for me and a really good process. And then I did some races that summer here in Ireland, and I went and did Ironman Cork 70.3 in the August before as a training run, because I think I had actually signed up to do that in 2021, but then it wasn't on. And I actually had a brilliant race. And it was the first time that I've ever felt like I raced a race, if you know what I mean. Like I was in control of what I was doing. I wasn't just winging it per se.
Yeah.
And it was my first kind of feeling of, do you know what, I raced that and I knew what I was doing and I was in control. And I finished top 3 in my age category, and I was then qualified for the 70.3 Worlds in Finland, which was 2023. So then I had October 2022 in St. George, which was insane. Like, just to even go to one of those events is like, it's so cool. Like,
absolutely, yeah.
It's such an experience. And yeah, when I got there, I was just like, this is insane. Like, what am I doing here? Like, this is mad. But it was such a cool race, but I didn't have a great race. It was kind of the start of that summer had kind of been the start of some lower back issues, specifically on the bike. I never have lower back issues or pain when I'm running. It's just on the bike. And it kind of kicked in from 45k in, and it was just a slog then. But honestly, like, St. George is just stunning. Like, there's this part called Snow Canyon, and you're just like cycling up through these red rocks and cliffs. And it's a beaut, like you're never ever going to be in this place again, you know, doing this thing. Like the pictures from it are insane. Like it looks like you could be on Mars, you know. And then it was like 3 degrees that morning as well. So like you're getting onto the bike after being in a 17-degree lake to get onto the bike in 3 degrees, freezing your ass off. It was just bizarre, because then once you got off onto the run, you were like, it was 21 degrees and it was like running through the desert. But yeah, St. George, it wasn't my best race, but you know, it was the first kind of big race that I'd done, like of that kind of caliber. And I think like the only thing in the back of my mind finishing it was, you know, we're here to do this for the people who can't do it. We're here for the people who don't get this chance, who, you know, and Alan was at the back of my mind all the time. And it was an incredible race to be at, and an incredible experience. And then we went into 2020. Oh, sorry, I forgot one thing. Before that, I had done the Pikeman down in Wexford as a training race, but one of my friends came off her bike just heading down into transition, and this should be a lesson for all triathletes. Do not put your bags on your handlebars, because the string of one of her bags got caught in her front wheel, jammed the wheel, and she went out over the top of it. And always wear your helmet when you're going into transition, I think is another key one. She was luckily wearing her helmet that day, but she got ambulanced away and it totally triggered me. So I had a complete and utter, like, I couldn't talk, I couldn't say anything, and the race director was like, is she okay? But I had friends there who knew what was going on and realised that I'd been triggered by the ambulance and things like that. And he was like, right, we'll give you 10 extra minutes. And everybody's then down in transition, giving out because the race is delayed. And I'm standing there having a full-on meltdown in my head thinking, I can't go in that water. This is the day, this is the line, you know, the line has come. You're just going to have to accept this is not your day. There's no way you can get in the sea when you're already, you know, having a pure like meltdown inside. And then my friends were like, look how calm the sea is. You can get in and try. And I was like, I specifically remember standing on that beach and looking at the sea going, this could not be a more perfect day for a race. And I was like, right, okay, we're just going to try. We're just going to get in and try. And if worst case scenario, I get in, I do 200 meters and I swim back out, like, because I just can't do it today. And I did the race, and I finished top 5 in my age category and got Tri-Team Ireland status for 2023. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't try.
Give it a try, yeah.
And I think that's the lesson to be learned from it, that even on the days where it feels too hard, and because, you know, for me, the open water swim, I'm always feeling sick before I get into it. Even now, even on the days where it feels hard, you should just try, because you just don't know how it's going to work out, and you should just give it a try.
It's a lovely tagline, that.
Yeah.
Give it a try. For everything, for anything, really.
And it was my friends that were like, just get in and try. You can just get in and try. You don't have to, there's no pressure. You don't have to do it. Just get in and try. And I was like, okay, that should be the moral for life, really.
It's a clinker. It's a clinker. It's so easy. It's catchy. It's, yeah. Give it a try.
Just try. What have you got to lose?
I love that.
But for me, like the big thing of it was, if I hadn't got in and tried, I wouldn't have got the Tri-Team Ireland spot. So, you know, I would have missed out on an opportunity to do something really, really cool. So yeah, 2023 then was a massive year. I did the European Championships in Madrid, which I remember saying back at the start there that I had made myself practice in the river, because I thought, I can't go to a European Championships of all things with all these like really good triathletes and have meltdown and swim. And when we got there, the lake, I've never seen anything like it. It was a toxic, lime green covered lake. And I was like,
Oh, Christ.
they can't put us in that. They can't.
This is the start of The Simpsons. The
No,
three-eyed
literally,
fish and all.
literally. I was like, there's gonna be like the fish with like 10 eyes jumping out of this.
Yeah.
I was like, oh lads, I like that. It just gives me the goose and the shivers just even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, you're just going to have to do this. Like, they didn't cancel the swim until literally the morning of the race. Oh my God. I have never been so relieved in my life not have to go into a body of water. When I say it was lime green, it was a lime green. Ugh, gross.
Disgusting, just, yeah. So what did you turn it into, like, to do a run instead of the swim then or
Yeah,
something?
which suited me fine because I run better than I swim. So I actually finished ninth in my age category that day, which was
Class.
absolutely bizarre because I'm not really fast. I'm a just I'd say top end average triathlete.
You're selling yourself short there, I doubt.
Don't think so, not at all. But yeah, it was an amazing experience as well. Like to be able to be running around and for people to be shouting for Ireland and your name is on an Irish kit, like that's just. I suppose that's a kid dream, isn't it? To be able
It's a
to
dream come true. Yeah, it's just,
represent your country, like.
it's magic. It's just
Yeah,
magic.
it was just it was so surreal. And then went to Finland in August last year, and that was like honestly, because do you remember I said at the start that I got really caught up on data and
Yeah.
performance and like pushing and pushing and pushing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was like, that summer realized I was having issues with my lower back on the bike and it wasn't going away, but I had to train for this race. So I had to just plow on and just get the training done and figure it out afterwards. And I just was like, right, I'm going to Finland and I am going to enjoy this race because I didn't enjoy the bike in St. George. I had a really tough time on the bike in St. George with my back. And I was like, no, you're going to Finland and your only purpose is to enjoy it. It doesn't matter what time is on the clock. It doesn't matter what pace you do on the bike. You're just going to go and your main purpose at all times is to enjoy this race.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. I absolutely loved it. Soaked it up, all the atmosphere. It was just unreal. It was such a good race. And yeah, I was just really, really chuffed to have been there and to, have a second World Championships under my belt and come away with a medal. And like, honestly, it's such an incredible experience to go to one of those events and to be there amongst the best athletes in the world. It's just, a lot of gratitude
Fair play.
for it.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff.
And then I went to the World Championships, the World Triathlon Championships in Pontevedra in Spain then in the September and had my best swim ever in a river. Would you believe it or not?
The irony. It all comes full circle, doesn't it?
Honestly, full circle, yeah. And my friend,
dirty old river swim.
Dirty old river swim and best swim ever.
Unreal.
I'm telling you. Sometimes these things work out.
The thing that you were dreading most turned out to be the thing that pushed you on.
Yeah. I got
breaking all sorts of barriers and horizons with that swim.
Yeah.
Class.
So that was last year, and now this year has been quiet up until the last kind of couple of months. I did an ultra trail there in the end of the summer, and I did the Dublin Marathon on the weekend, and now in 2 weeks' time I'm heading off to Morocco to do a 2-day ultra, which, as I said to my friend today, he said something like, I don't think you've found your limit yet. And I was like, well, it's 2 weeks' time, this could be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and I'll be in with the camels.
What does a 2-day ultra in Morocco look like? Because I tell you what it sounds like. It sounds painful. it's like you're gonna need to have a shopping trolley full of gels to get through that. Like, what are we looking at? How many miles, or is it an hourly thing, or what way is that pan out?
Well, the first day you do 60k, I think there's about 800 meters elevation on the first day. It's through the desert and oases and things like that. But they're really, Ultra Exco have really lenient cut-off times for the checkpoints. So that's one of the draw points, I suppose, to an event like this, is that the cut-off times are not stringent. And yeah, so it's 60k on the first day, and then you camp in the desert. You have to, they'll bring your bag and stuff, but you camp in the desert and you have to provide your own stuff, your own food, everything. And then you get up the next day and you run 50k.
That just sounds dirty. Why the desert? What's the draw with the desert? You can't get enough of the bloody desert.
I'll tell you what, I was looking up things to do in Morocco because I wanted to go to Morocco. I was supposed to go in 2020, and this race came up, and I was like, oh, that looks like kind of like an adventure. But then I was like, oh, I don't know. But it never really went out of my head. And then I figured out that two friends of mine from Bahrain are going, and I was like, oh, I could go do it with them.
Excellent.
So it was one of those things that just, I feel like I'm meant to go there because it just wouldn't go out of my head. You know, sometimes you come across these things and you think, right, I'll leave it for a while, and then it goes out of your head and you know you're not meant to do it. But then I was like, do you know what? This is not going out of my head. I'm just going to go and give it a go. And I've got two friends at the minute who have nephews going through treatment for leukemia. So I'm going to actually start a GoFundMe page and raise some money for a charity to support kids receiving cancer treatment in Ireland. And then I'll have a purpose. So, you know, on the second day, when the going gets tough, which it inevitably will, you know, I'll have that as a driving purpose for getting the shit done and getting one foot in front of the other and just keep moving forward. Because, you know, it's one thing to hear about, you know, an adult who's lived all their life getting cancer and going through treatment. That's awful. But when you think about it in terms of a 2.5-year-old child, like, that really just genuinely puts life into perspective very quickly.
That's a lot of things into perspective, doesn't it?
That's a very little person going through an unimaginable thing, and their family going through an unimaginable thing. And yeah, if I can raise a little bit of money doing something really hard, because I like to do really hard things, then yeah, there can be something positive from it as well.
Fair play to you, Ber. That's a lovely way to end what has been a very, very interesting and powerful podcast. So thank you.
Thank you for having me and for listening to my story.
If people wanted to follow your story, can they catch you on Instagram? Are you okay for people to do that? Or, you know, I'm thinking about the fundraising thing as well. Are you going to promote that on Insta or on your podcast, or what way is the best thing?
So I'll be sharing it through Instagram and Facebook. So you can find me on Instagram at Ber Athlete, Bare Athlete. And I'm on Facebook as Ber Carton. So yeah, if anybody was listening and wanted to donate, I will get that link up in the next couple of days. And yeah, even if anybody wanted to reach out and connect, as you mentioned, I did start my own podcast there and kind of did one season of it. The purpose of it being to kind of shed light and bring those kind of shadow stories out into the light, because we all have shadow stories. There are things in all of our lives that, you know, kind of live in the shadows of our minds, and sometimes we need to talk them out. We need to say them out loud, and then that takes the power away from them. So that's what the purpose of the podcast was. And as you mentioned, there are a couple of episodes on there, sport related, obviously. And there is an episode there about that cycling accident. or Cycling Tragedy. And yeah, if anybody wanted to check that out, you can find that on Apple or on Spotify under Sail is Soul podcast.
Cool. And again, I'll put a link to that in the description underneath this podcast as well.
Thank you very much, Mickey. It's been
not a problem. Good stuff. Ber, all the very best for the future. I'm looking forward to the pictures and the videos and all the reels and memes and whatever else materializes out of the adventure in Morocco.
Yeah.
And hopefully at some point, maybe next year, we might bump into each other at one of these wacky Ironman events. So
it'd be great to meet in person.
Cool. Take care of yourself, and all the very best.
Thank you.